Something is happening in the nation of Poland.
Nie ma żadnego... Nie jebie was Allah, tu jest Polska i nie będziecie rozkładać dywanów. Wszystko w temacie. Żadny rasizm, kurwa, to wy swoją religię tu wpierdalacie. Tu jest Polska i tyle, rozumiesz? Polska, Jezus Chrystus i tyle, i wszystko w temacie.
Video after video is popping up online showing more and more Polish citizens confronting Muslim migrants trying to hold public prayer in their streets, with locals refusing to back down.
This is public place, mate. Not pride here. You have a mosque, you go to mosque. Idź, kurwa, do mosque. Idź do swojego muzułmańskiego, kurwa, kościoła się modlić. Chodź, kurwa. Chodź, ty, kurwa, kozojebco. Będżut, kurwa. Będżut, kurwa. Będżut, o, patrzcie, to jest taka, kurwa, muzułmańska morda. O, kurwa, o. Jesteś tu gościem, kurwa, nie u siebie. Jesteś tu, kurwa, gościem, nie u siebie jesteś, kurwa.
What's happening on the streets of Krakow and Warsaw is but a microcosm of what's happening inside the Polish government. Civilizational sovereignty has officially awakened, and it just crossed a line no Muslim migrant ever expected. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Muslims currently constitute less than 0.1% of the Polish population, somewhere between 25,000 and 50,000 people out of nearly 40 million Poles, making Poland home to the smallest Muslim community anywhere on the continent of Europe. The vast majority of Poland's historic Muslim presence traces back centuries to the Lipka Tatars from Lithuania, a small, fully assimilated community with ancient mosques still standing in a number of Polish villages. But in recent years, a new and very different pressure has been building at Poland's eastern edge. Starting in 2021, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko began flying migrants from Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Somalia into Minsk on tourist visas, and then he bussed them straight to the Polish border, pushing them toward the wire. Now, this obviously was an organic migration. NATO and the EU both called it out for exactly what it is. It's what's called hybrid warfare. It's the deliberate weaponization of migrants as a weapon against a nation. In this case, it was retaliation for Western sanctions against the Lukashenko government. Poland answered the border threat with steel, miles of it. A 115-mile wall standing about 18 feet high, topped with razor wire, backed by an electronic surveillance barrier of 3,000 cameras spanning approximately 124 miles. Then on May 28, 2024, a 21-year-old Polish soldier was stabbed through the border fence with a knife lashed to a pole. He died of the wounds days later, defending that line in uniform. His death only served to harden Polish public opinion into something close to a national consensus. The border must hold whatever it takes. And whatever it takes is exactly what Poland did next. In February 2025, Poland's parliament passed a law by an overwhelming margin suspending the right to even apply for asylum along the Belarus border. This is the first EU country in history to switch off that right entirely. President Andrzej Duda signed it in March, and Poland activated it the very next day. For 70 years, international law held that if you reached a border and said the word asylum, someone had to listen. Well, Poland stopped listening. And ironically, and perhaps the most stunning about face, the European Union, that had once dragged Poland to court for refusing refugees back in 2020, they quietly gave this law their blessing. The center of European politics shifted, and it was Poland, perhaps more than any other country, that helped solidify that shift. The fundamental question all of this raises is the same one being asked from London to Amsterdam. Is Islam, as a political and legal system, compatible with a sovereign Christian nation. The key Islamic doctrine in question is called Hakimiyya. It means sovereignty or divine governance, and it holds that God alone, Allah, is the ultimate sovereign over all human affairs, political, legal, social, and that no human ruler, no legislature, no court may enact laws that contradict divine command. Sayyid Qutb, the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood ideologue, argued that contemporary Muslim majority societies living under man-made law had reverted to pre-Islamic ignorance, making resistance, including violent jihad, religiously obligatory. The classical Islamic concept is more broadly known as Sharia, the divine law that serves as the supreme legal authority over civil government, superseding any man-made legislation. Enter Karol Nawrocki, the president of Poland. Nawrocki has been a passionate defender of Poland's sovereignty and its Catholic identity, arguing that mass migration from Islamic countries is fundamentally incompatible with the values that built the Polish nation. Against the backdrop of a leftist takeover of the Polish parliament, Nawrocki campaigned under the Trump-inspired slogan, Poland First, pledging to combat illegal immigration, protect Poland's borders from Belarusian-engineered migrant flows, and defend the country's Catholic heritage from foreign pressure. And to the shock of liberal globalists across the European Union, the Polish people agreed. On the night of June 1st, 2025, the political establishment of Brussels received a thunderclap. Nawrocki won the Polish presidency. The liberal media called it a disaster for European unity. Brussels went pale, and European patriots across the continent realized that Poland is indeed the future of Europe. Nawrocki had not merely won an election. He had detonated a signal flare visible across the entire Western world, illuminating a civilizational confidence the establishment had spent years trying to suppress. You want to take a guess where the big banks quietly put their money when the markets get shaky? It's not stocks, not bonds, not crypto. Every single year, institutions like Wells Fargo and Chase quietly buy up roughly 90% of something most Americans have never even heard of. Tax liens, created by government statute, secured by real American property. And here's the part that got my attention. The returns, they're not set by Wall Street, and they're certainly not set by the Fed. The returns are actually set by law. Now, the big banks would love to keep this wealth secret to themselves, but here's what they can't hide. This isn't just for institutions. Everyday Americans can do the exact same thing, and you could start with as little as $50. You heard that right, $50. Now, a friend of mine named Jay has been doing this for years and teaching regular, hardworking folks how they can do it too. So on Wednesday, August 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, Jay is hosting a free live masterclass, and he's going to buy a real tax lien live right there on the video call, start to finish, nothing hidden, to show you exactly how you can do the same thing. It's a quiet, steady, law-based strategy that lets hardworking patriots build real wealth on their own terms without begging the Fed, without gambling in the markets, and without handing your future to the same institutions that got us into this mess in the first place. No market timing, no complicated strategies, no tenants, no rehabs, no leverage, just a couple of spare hours a week. Now, this masterclass happens only once, live in real time. There's no replay of that live purchase demonstration. When it's done, it's done. So don't be the last one to find out about it. Go to turleyclass.com to lock in your spot. That's turleyclass.com, or just text Turley to 72,000. That's Turley to 72000. Or even easier, scan the QR code on your screen, tap send, and you're in. Again, it's Wednesday, August 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you for this awesome masterclass. There's a word that keeps surfacing in the political science literature, a word that's reshaping how scholars understand the populist revolts convulsing the Western world, and that word is civilizational, not merely nationalist, not merely economic or populist, civilizational. Sam Huntington, the great Harvard scholar, predicted decades ago that the fault lines of the 21st century would not be drawn between nations or ideologies, but rather between civilizations. The deepest human loyalties, he argued, are not to flags or constitutions per se, but to the shared language, faith, memory, and moral imagination of a people across time. Civilization is the largest unit of human identity, and when it's threatened, something primal awakens. And that awakening is precisely what we're witnessing in Poland today. Because what the Brussels elite never seemed to anticipate, what the NGO class and the open borders consensus never modeled, is that a nation which has already lived through so much partition, Nazi occupation, Soviet domination, would look at a dead soldier on its own border fence, a dictator flying in human beings as ammunition, or European elites spending decades lecturing about tolerance, and conclude, you know what? Never again. We're not doing this anymore. You see, the globalist project required a specific ingredient to function: cheap, compliant, imported labor, an endless reservoir of workers, foreign workers, who would accept wages that no native European would tolerate, maximizing the profit margins of multinationals whose lobbying dollars, frankly, funded the very politicians keeping the borders open. It's a closed loop of corruption dressed up as compassion. And when ordinary Poles dared to name it, dared to say this is not diversity, this is displacement, they were immediately branded as racist and xenophobic and far-right extremists. The slurs came like clockwork from Brussels bureaucrats to editorial boards of every legacy newspaper on the continent. But again, here's what the elites fatally miscalculated. The slander only ended up accelerating the resolve. Because when a nation is called racist for wanting its daughters to be safe, it doesn't become more liberal. It becomes more determined. And when a border guard is told his vigilance is bigotry, he doesn't go quiet, he builds a wall, and the country cheers him for it. And so a remarkable thing is happening. Something the secular globalist consensus declared impossible just a generation ago. Christianity's not returning to Poland's public square. It never left. Not as nostalgia, not as a museum piece heritage, but as a political force, a vibrant civilizational grammar through which the Polish people are articulating their resistance. And they're not alone. Giorgia Meloni in Italy, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, Jimmie Åkesson in Sweden. These leaders are not simply anti-immigration politicians. They're making a deeper argument that Europe's freedoms, its rule of law, its protection of women, its freedom of conscience, its democratic self-governance did not emerge from a vacuum. They were built on a specific civilizational foundation, and that foundation has a name. Poland has shown what resolve looks like in practice, and it's no longer just theory or street protest. It is now written into law and being enforced in all kinds of ways among its own citizens on its streets. What Poland is teaching us in real time is that civilizations are not self-sustaining. They require defenders who are willing to be called names, endure the slander, and hold the line regardless. And if Poland could suspend the right to asylum and win Brussels' blessing rather than its condemnation, it's written a template every other nation facing the same pressure can now follow. History does not reward the hesitant. It rewards those who understood the moment and decisively acted, just like Poland.